Russian oil exports back above pre-Ukraine war levels as India and China buy 90%.
Here's a summary of the article.
Russian crude oil exports are back above levels seen before Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine, despite the ratcheting up of Western sanctions, new data shows. India and China now account for 90% of Russia's seaborne crude oil exports, according to figures shared with the independent by commodities tracking firm Capella. Despite Western sanctions designed to stop funds reaching Vladimir Putin's war chest following his Ukraine invasion, Russia's crude oil exports have actually risen from 3.35 million barrels of oil per day in 2022 to 3.5 million in the first quarter of 2023, Capella said. From importing a mere 1% of its total oil requirements from Russia in 2021, India, the world's third largest oil importer, has dramatically ramped up its business with Moscow, buying 25% of its oil from Russia in 2022 and 51% in the first quarter of 2023. While volumes of Russian oil exports have risen, the heavily discounted rates Moscow is offering to India and China mean revenues are significantly down year-on-year. Laurie Milivitha, co-founder and lead analyst at Research on Energy and Clean Air, told The Independent that volumes are expected to stay at or above the levels preceding the Ukraine invasion unless there is an outright ban on tankers owned or insured in the EU and G7 carrying Russian oil. If this approach is properly implemented, the large volume of imports of Russian oil to China and India would not be a problem, he said.
This post received a score of 5,000, with an upvote ratio of 95%. Here are the top comments in response to this article.
That 43% revenue is what matters. The West doesn't want to take Russian oil out of the market because that would drive up the prices for everyone, including the Western public. They want to lower the price Russia gets for that oil to essentially break-even levels, maybe a little bit more so Russia doesn't think about closing down production.
EA, always give the illusion of a way out. Nothing is more dangerous than a desperate opponent.
People comment this a lot. What is ironic, is that Putin himself has said so himself. I wonder what lesson is taking from his very own anecdote these days?
Just remember kids, when you have a problem that you started, make sure you run away from it and hope you're faster.
57% of last year's revenue on record production.
And that's top line, gross revenue. Net, money in pocket after expenses, going to be even worse as a percent.
Russian oil revenue down almost 50%.
It's actually possible to sell more oil and make less money if the oil being sold is significantly cheaper per barrel. China and India are buying Russian oil, cheap.
Thanks Magic Johnson.
The difference is the price it's being bought at. Quantity might be same but the profit they're making is not.
Where do you see these numbers?
While volumes of Russian oil exports have risen, the heavily discounted rates Moscow is offering to India and China mean revenues are significantly down year-on-year. The International Energy Agency (IEA) said on Friday that although Russian oil exports hit their highest level in almost 3 years in March, revenues of $12.7 billion are still 43% down on the same period in 2022.
At clearance sale prices.
As has already been pointed out, oil revenue is down 43% despite increases in production. If Russia wants to increase its profits, it's going to have to drastically increase production in spite of the wishes of OPEC+.
For Europe to buy from India.
Anyone have some updated figures on China? Last I saw they were bringing in the same amount as before, but they massively changed the mix to predominantly crude over refined. Also, I imagine when your economy is in the toilet and one of the only things you can sell for cheap is oil and your price is way below everyone else. Edit. Not mentioning refined here. Seems purposely leaving out relevant info.
Article says China is decreasing from its peak and is now at 800,000 barrels a day, while India is skyrocketing its purchases to 1,900,000 barrels a day from 25% in 2021 to 51% in 2023.
Then China and India turns around and sell it to the rest of the world at market prices.
This video was automatically created by Reddit to speech. The article and comments in this video were selected from Reddit according to their upvotes, and any paraphrasing was performed by smmry.com, without any human intervention.